Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Cadisen C8239. This watch is available from Cadisen.net for $100 which is €86 respectively. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in a watch box which is protected by this white cardboard sleeve. One removes the sleeve, and this is the cardboard watch box itself. The lid is branded with Cadisen in silver, and the flap of the lid is attracted to the base with a pair of magnets. So there's one magnet inside the flap, one magnet inside the base. Now, previously when I've reviewed watches that come in watch boxes with magnets, such as Christopher Ward, Pagani Design and Cadisen respectively, often collectors will post comments below the video saying, will the magnets magnetize the movement, because they're concerned about that. Now, to clarify, the magnets have enough magnetic field to attract each other, but not enough magnetic field in order to magnetize an automatic movement, such as the Miyota Caliber 8215 automatic used in this piece. So inside we have a foam protective panel, one removes, and in the base there's another foam cutout panel and a second cutout which houses a push pin tool. Now the push pin tool is absent in this case because this piece doesn't come on a bracelet, it has a nylon fabric strap, therefore one doesn't need the push pin tool in order to resize bracelet links in the bracelet. So it does a good job of protecting the watch in shipping. It is basic and it does suffice, and I think it's acceptable to use a basic cardboard watch box at this price point, €86 respectively. With regards to items that come with the piece, it comes with this leaflet, which is the owner's instruction manual. Clear, concise diagrams. The instructions are in English, and it details the operation of the movement used, which is the Miyota Caliber 8215 automatic. One also gets this card, which is the warranty card. It has the brand emblem, brand logo, and the motto, "Brilliance witnessed by time." Inside, there's space to fill in the type, code, date of purchase, dealer signature, and maintenance record. Now, this states that the watch is covered by a 12-month international warranty. However, on their website, it contradicts that, Cadisen.net. It says 2 years of international warranty. So I've clarified this with Cadisen, and this is actually erroneous. It's not 12 months international warranty. They are now covering their watches with 2 years of international warranty, which is excellent. The industry standard for low-tier pieces between €0 and €500 is 12 months. Mid-tier pieces between €500 and €5,000 respectively are usually covered by the industry standard 2-year international warranty, so it is a credit to Cadisen to have 2 years of warranty on a piece costing €86 in the low tier. And lastly, one also gets this Cadisen branded microfiber polishing cloth. I always think it's a nice touch to get a branded microfiber polishing cloth, irrespective of the price point of the piece. So, with regards to the specifications of the piece, this Cadisen C8239 is clearly an homage to the Blancpain 50 Fathoms, albeit it has smaller proportions, because we have a 42mm case diameter, we have a 48mm lug-to-lug measurement, a thickness of 12.5mm, and a lug width of 22mm. The woven nylon fabric strap is straight and parallel, 22mm at the lugs, 22mm at the buckle and tang. Solid 316L grade stainless steel buckle and tang, nice heavy gauge to it, and it's black PVD coated to a good standard on the top side, underside and flanks. So brush satin finish beneath the black PVD coating. The brush satin finishing has a beautiful luster, and then the black PVD coating is done to a very good standard on both the buckle and also the tang. However, I'm going to be critical because it is sterile and unsigned. I'd like to see either the Cadisen emblem, or alternatively Cadisen text logo, engraved or embossed on the buckle and tang, because this is a clear production cost cutting measure in order to maximise profit margin per piece. One has to be magnanimous and realistic. It is a low tier piece at €86, and therefore one is going to see some evidence of production cost cutting, but this sterile unsigned buckle and tang is a disappointment. It should be signed because the production cost of engraving or embossing a buckle is negligible. We have two keepers which are fixed. They are stitched either side, and they are correctly proportioned, nice heavy gauge to the solid 316L grade stainless steel keepers. And again, the quality of the black PVD coating is good, quality of the stitching is good, no loose stitches, and they are fixed firmly into position, so that's good, correctly proportioned for all wrist sizes. So with regards to the rest of the specification, we have a boxed top hat double dome crystal. However, it is mineral crystal, not sapphire crystal. Blue AL coating on the underside. Now firstly, the blue AL coating I consider to be a mistake. The reason why I say it's a mistake, blue AL coating works well with blue dial watches, regardless of whether they are glossy enamel blue, sunray blue or matte texture blue, regardless. But when you have other colours, such as a black sunray dial like this one, clear AR coating complements it, because When you have blue AR coating, when you tilt the piece at an oblique angle, you get this blue hue. Now, of course, with a blue dial watch, it is aesthetically pleasing. The blue tint of the AR, or blue hue of it, complements the dial. But when you have other colours, such as black, clear AR coating improves legibility, improves clarity, and one doesn't get the clash between the blue tint and also the black dial. So I think they've made a mistake. They should have used clear AR coating versus blue, but this is subjective. Some collectors prefer blue AR coating. Mineral crystal is a clear production cost cutting measure. To put this into perspective, Cadisen are producing these pieces in massive batches of 500 pieces plus. Therefore, the production cost difference between using mineral crystal, K1 hardened glass, or alternatively sapphire crystal with AR coating is negligible. So there really is no excuse, and I appreciate this is a low tier piece at only €86, but sapphire crystal is viable at this price point. Production cost is not significantly more than using mineral crystal, but they've chosen to use mineral crystal. The negative is that it's not as hard and scratch resistant, but in terms of clarity, it has the same clarity as sapphire crystal, and of course they've added AR coating to enhance that, which is good. The bezel is also made from mineral crystal. Now again, this is a production cost cutting measure. They have missed an opportunity here because this is clearly an homage to the Blancpain 50 Fathoms, and that uses sapphire crystal and the diamonds, the minute ticks for the first 15-minute quarter, and the Arabic numerals 15, 30 and 45. On the Blancpain 50 Fathoms, they're fully loomed with BGW9. And sapphire crystal with a fully loomed BGW9 bezel is very aesthetically pleasing. But what Cadisen have done is, visually it looks similar because it has a domed profile to the bezel insert, but it's not made from sapphire crystal, it's made from mineral crystal, which again is not as hard and scratch resistant. It does look aesthetically pleasing, but of course it's disappointing. Now the other negative is it just uses white paint beneath it. It's not looms with C3 or BGW9 Super Lume Nova, and they really have missed an opportunity here because it would have further enhanced the piece, but that's a production cost cutting measure again. Bezel is solid 316L grade stainless steel, and it is a knurled bezel versus a scalloped bezel or gear tooth profile bezel or coin edge bezel respectively. Low profile, so it allows the domed mineral crystal insert to project above it, so it looks good. Grippy and tactile, quality of the brushed satin finishing beneath the black PVD coating is good. The knurled teeth are machined very well, no sharp edges, and it's got a large chamfer on the top edge which deletes the sharp edge of the knurled teeth. So it looks good and also feels good. Grippy and tactile, easy to get good purchase with one's index finger and thumb, and I like it is low profile. Case is solid 316L grade stainless steel, brushed satin finish throughout, and then black PVD coated on every facet. So top of the curved lugs have good quality black PVD coating. Curvature to the flanks, which are convex profile, as per the Blancpain 50 Fathoms, which this is an homage to. Very nicely proportioned. I like the case isn't too thick, and also like the curvature of it. A nice curvature on the top and the underside of the lugs, which have flats on the end of the lugs. This is a very nicely proportioned case, and in terms of it being an homage to the Blancpain 50 Fathoms, it actually looks very good, albeit in a smaller case size of 42 versus the Blancpain 50 Fathoms 45, respectively. So I really like the quality of the matte finish to the black PVD coating, and there are no flaws or imperfections in the black PVD coating whatsoever. Nice large undercut to the flanks, and this deletes the sharp edge. It enhances comfort level and feel good factor. Also tips of the lugs have bevels, that deletes the sharp corners. So it is a very well finished case for an €86 price point piece. Now, with regards to the woven fabric nylon strap, this is the main negative of this piece. They should have used either a silicone rubber or FKM floor rubber strap, or alternatively simply a NATO strap, which is seatbelt weave, because that would be more comfortable. This is a very thick nylon fabric woven strap. Now, credit where credit's due. Visually it looks good, because the quality of the weave and the three stripes running down the centre section does look aesthetically pleasing, and the weave is done to a good standard, but it's very stiff. So it's not soft and supple, it's not comfortable, and the other problem is the edges of it, the flanks are actually sharp on the top side and the underside, so they scratch the wrist. The fabric itself feels very rough, rather like canvas. It doesn't feel soft and supple like a nylon NATO strap, or alternatively a seatbelt weave nylon NATO strap. It doesn't have that soft supple feel to it, it feels very stiff, but the other thing is it actually feels rough, rather like canvas fabric, and this is just too stiff, too sharp on the edge, and too rough. It feels abrasive and sharp. So even with daily wear and tear, with breaking in, it's never going to become soft and supple as per a nylon NATO strap. So they really need to upgrade the quality of this strap, and I think an FKM floor rubber strap, or alternatively a silicone rubber strap, would be more soft and supple, and of course it would fit the aesthetic of this being a Blancpain 50 Fathoms Homage. And this strap, although looks good, the truth is it diminishes comfort level and feel good factor due to the aforementioned defects. And of course the buckle and tang visually looks good, as well as the keepers in terms of finishing, in brush satin finishing, then black PVD coating, but again the problem is it's sterile, so it looks like a low tier buckle and tang, which of course this is a low tier piece, but they could do better, that's the point. Let's look at the underside of the strap. So underside is sterile. Now again we've got an error here, because this does not have quick release stainless steel spring bars, and this is particularly detrimental with this piece, because when one has a black PVD coated case like this, when you're using a spring bar tool to compress the spring bar, when you have a very stiff thick strap like this, the problem is it can be difficult to actually depress the spring bar without slipping off it, and then of course you slip off and then you scuff the black PVD coating on the tips of the lugs, and that reveals the base metal, which is 316L grade stainless steel in silver. And that's the problem, because unlike scuffs and scratches to mirror polished or brush satin finished 316L grade stainless steel, you cannot cover up the scratch and scuff to black PVD coating. It needs to be PVD coated again, so it's not practical. Quick release stainless steel spring bars of course are beneficial, because that negates the need for a spring bar tool, and of course there's less risk of you scuffing the lugs with a spring bar. You can of course use Kapton polyamide tape, which I've detailed in my bracelet resizing tips video, and of course Kapton polyamide tape on the lugs does protect the black PVD coating, and then if you do slip off with a spring bar tool, or if you're fitting the spring bar, you're not going to scuff the lug. So I recommend using Kapton polyamide tape, but quick release stainless steel spring bars are absent. And with these thick straps, it is very difficult to compress them, and standard stainless steel spring bars really aren't appropriate. If this had pierced lugs with holes in the lugs, then yes, one could depress the spring bar externally, but this is the problem. Standard stainless steel spring bars. Underside of the strap is finished to a good standard. The nylon weave is good, no loose stitches to it, and around the holes are welded to prevent them fraying. So it's well finished, but the problem is it's just rough. The fabric is rough like canvas, the edges, the flanks are sharp, and the fabric itself feels abrasive. It doesn't feel smooth and soft and supple like a nylon NATO strap. So they really need to delete this strap and add an FKM floor rubber strap, alternatively silicone rubber strap. That would further enhance it. So let's test the bezel and screw down crown execution. 120 click unidirectional bezel, as one would expect. So let's check the execution. Nice loud audible clicks, light resistance to it. It's too light. Needs to be made firmer. So when I weigh up a bezel, the optimum bezel execution in terms of resistance is the Seiko 5KX, which you'll all be familiar with. The 5KX has a firm medium resistance, but I like it because it's nice and tight in terms of lateral side-side play and back play, but it's got nice loud audible clicks, feels smooth, doesn't feel rough or gritty. This one feels much lighter. Feels like a Pagani design PD1661, or alternatively a steel dive SD1953, which you will be familiar with. It has that light bezel execution. Feels lighter than a San Martin SN017G, which again you will be familiar with, and I dislike it. It feels too light. The reason why I say it's too light, it feels like if you rubbed against it, you could potentially knock it out of position accidentally, anti-clockwise. Doesn't have enough resistance in it to feel firm and reliable and robust long term. Now it doesn't feel rough or gritty, doesn't feel too stiff, feels smooth, feels even all the way through the 360 degrees, doesn't get tighter or looser, so that's the benefit. No lateral side-side play is good, but however, back play. We're looking at half a click of back play, so it's significant. And this is the kind of back play one would expect with a Pagani design such as the PD1661. It's just not good enough. Now I appreciate this is €86 in the low tier. One has to be magnanimous and expect some production cost cutting measure, some QC defects. But bezel execution is a fundamental. The reason why I'm critical of it is other low tier Chinese brands such as Steel Dive with the SD1953, which is a Submariner date homage you will all be familiar with, that's only €80. This is 86, so similar price point. But the point is, the SD1953 has excellent bezel execution because it doesn't have this kind of half a click of back play clockwise. So this is the negative. Now, in terms of lateral side-side play, there is none. So that's good. And it does feel even through the 360 degrees of rotation. That's good. Doesn't get tighter or lighter, which is good. It's just the back play is a concern, as you can see, and it is significant. half a click of back play. Let's check the alignment. So I'll just bring the diamond up to the 60-minute tick on the chapter ring and the 12 o'clock Arabic numerals on the dial. Perfect. So credit where credit's due. The diamond on the domed mineral crystal bezel inset perfectly aligns with the 12 o'clock index on the dial, 12 Arabic numerals on the dial, and the 60-minute tick on the chapter ring. So the alignment is correct, no lateral side-side play, just back play is the concern. Now it's aligned, I'll show you the amount of back play. You can see there, half a click of back play clockwise. So although alignment is correct, the bezel has significant back play, and that's a disappointment. And the back play is present all the way around. I'm just going to check it in 4 positions for continuity, because when I level criticism at a brand, I like to be fair rather than unfair. I like to be unbiased. Yes, so I've checked it in 4 different positions, and the back play is persistent all through the 360 degrees of rotation. Half a click of back play in every position of the bezel. They need to tighten up the tolerances of it. So sounds good, feels good, too light, but nonetheless no lateral side-side plays, just the alignment is the one issue. So screw down crown execution. Knurled screw down crown. Now, knurled finish is correct. The reason why I say it's correct, often this is something low-tier Chinese brands and low-tier micro brands get incorrect. There's a clash between the bezel execution and the crown execution in terms of finishing choice. For example, they'll have a coin edge bezel and a knurled crown, or for example, they'll have a gear tooth bezel and then a coin edge crown, which of course clashes. It should be gear tooth bezel, gear tooth crown, knurled bezel, alternatively coin edge bezel, coin edge crown, matching. This is a knurled crown and also a knurled bezel, so it does match, which is good. It's correctly proportioned. The crown guards are also correctly proportioned because the crown is partially recessed in between the crown guards, as it should be. It's large enough to be grippy and tactile, but it's not too large so that when you flex the wrist it doesn't dig into the back of the hand. Has a domed cap to it, and this is signed with the Cadisen emblem, which is embossed, and that's what I'd like to see on the buckle and tang for continuity. And as you can see, they are capable of doing it because the embossing of the Cadisen emblem is good. So let's test the execution. Feels rough and grifty. This is a disappointment. It feels stiff. It just does not feel satisfactory. So when you unscrew it, it feels like there's a lot of stiffness. Now, the resistance is caused by 2 issues. The friction is caused by 2 things. The rubber O-ring gaskets. So to clarify, this is 100 meters hermetic seal, which means there are 2 rubber O-ring gasket seals. There's 1 rubber O-ring seal inside the crown. There's a second rubber O-ring seal inside the crown tube, which is stainless steel. And the 2 hermetic seals provide 100 meters. This is disappointing. It should be 200 meters, but it's 100 nonetheless. So the problem is the tolerances, because the internal rubber O-ring seal inside the tube of the crown tube, the winding stem is rubbing against it with too much friction. So that's one area of friction. Second area of friction is when you screw it down, the rubber O-ring gasket seal inside the crown itself, when it closes down onto the end of this stainless steel crown tube, that also provides too much friction. Now, the other friction is caused by the interface, the mating of the threads, the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. So what we have 2 issues here. We have the tolerances of the rubber O-ring gasket seals are too tight, and the other problem is the threads, the cutting of the threads, the mating, the interface of the internal and external threads. It's rough and gritty. I'm just going to screw it down and feel it. It feels stiff. So you really have to turn the crown with a lot of torsion in order to get it to screw down and also to get it to unscrew. It feels stiff. This is simply down to poor tolerances. They haven't cut the threads deep enough, because if they cut the internal thread of the crown deeper and the external thread of the crown tube deeper, of course that would make it looser and that would reduce friction. It would become a silky smooth screw down crown. So very easy to do, and I'm heavily critical of it because other low-tier brands, and I keep referencing the Steel Dive SD 1953, but the reason is it's €80, it's similar price point. Steel Dive have a silky smooth screw-down crown. It's something I really like about it, and if Steel Dive are capable of doing it at the €80 price point, there's no excuse for Cadisen not being able to do it at the €86 price point. That's the point I'm making. So that's why I level criticism. Other low-tier brands such as Pagani Design and Steel Dive are capable of doing it. So it feels stiff, feels rough and gritty. It's not pleasant. So when it's unscrewed, we're now in the manual wind position, and one can manually wind the Miyota Caliber 8215 automatic to its maximum 42-hour power reserve. It feels smooth to manually wind, doesn't feel rough or gritty or too stiff as per a PT5000. It's not as smooth as an NH35A, or alternatively a 9015, or alternatively an SW200-1, which you will all be familiar with. It just feels rough, and one can feel the tension in the mainspring building up. Now, it just doesn't feel as smooth as an NH35A, and it certainly doesn't feel as refined and smooth as a 9015. Of course, the 8215 is an 8000 series caliber. The 9000 series are premium grade, such as the 9015 and the 9039, and they do feel noticeably smoother. So this is a base 8000 series caliber. The 8215 and 8315 feel the same. The only notable difference is the 8215 has 42 hours and the 8315, its successor, has 60 hours respectively, but the architecture is the same. So it doesn't feel pleasant to manually wind. It's not as rough and gritty as a PT5000, but it's not as smooth as an NH35A. That's just the way it is. Putting it out to the first click position is the quick set date complication, and they've cited the date complication at 4.5, and what I mean by that is it's halfway between the 4 and the 5 indices on the dial, so it's at 4.5 versus the 4 o'clock position. So rotating the crown anti-clockwise advances the quick set date, clicks over with a nice positive click. Now on a positive note, the single and the double Arabic numerals are correctly aligned in the date window. They're not too far to the left or the right, and they're not too high or too low, as you can see. So they've done a good job of the alignment. Quality of the black Arabic numerals on the white date wheel. The font is sharp and crisp. It's high definition. It's not too thick and blurry. So legibility is good. What I like about the dial is, which is Sunray dial, it's not too deep. It's not too thick. So therefore the date complication isn't sunk too deep beneath it. Therefore there isn't a permanent shadow. The legibility is therefore enhanced. So that's good. So it works well. Now in terms of how it feels, it doesn't feel as heavy as an NH35A. I prefer the sensation of an NH35A because that has a loud audible click, and it clicks over with a nice heavy click. You can feel it through the crown and also hear the loud audible click. The 8215 has a lighter clicking sensation, feels more like a 9015 or alternatively an SW200-1 when it clicks over, but alignment is good. It's a reliable, well-proven workhorse caliber. Putting it out to the second click position hacks the movement. If you look at the contrasting yellow tip to the arrowhead tip to the second hand, you can see it's now stopped dead, so therefore one can set the time precisely to the second. I'm going to be critical of the second hand because if you look at the tip, it actually looks yellow. Now it's supposed to be orange, and the reason why is, if I move the hand out of the way, if you look at the water resistance rating 100m/330 feet, that's in orange, and of course, the tip of the second hand should also be orange to match, but they've painted it in yellow rather than orange, and of course orange would match. So we've got this clash. Orange text on the dial, the tip of the arrowhead second hand is yellow, not orange. They've made a mistake on that, but nonetheless, we've now hacked it. Therefore, it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with the caliber 8215 automatic. Now again, it doesn't feel rough or gritty, it doesn't feel too stiff, but the resistance feels firmer than an NH35A. I prefer the smoothness of an NH35A, the smoothness of a 9015 and the smoothness of an SW200-1. It's just a characteristic of the 8215 and its successor, the 8315. They just have more resistance. It's not rough or gritty, it's not too stiff, but they just have more friction to the gearing, and it's just not pleasant. I prefer the lighter feeling, the smoothness of an NH35A. It's a level above the 8000 series, such as the 8215. So the other thing I dislike about it is the amount of backplay. There is more backplay with an 8215 than an NH35A, 9015 and SW200-1 respectively. So when you rotate the crown clockwise and anti-clockwise, you have to take up more slack in the gearing. It just doesn't feel as refined. So when you rotate the crown, there is a lot of slack in the winding gears, and you need to become accustomed to that because you have to take up the slack clockwise and anti-clockwise when you're setting the time to get the hand into the correct position. The NH35A does have less slack, definitely. So it's just a base 8000 series caliber, that's the reality of it, and it's not as tight, not as refined, not as smooth as a 9000 series such as the 9015, but of course one isn't going to see that at the €86 price point. So you have to take up the slack, but once you become accustomed to that, it is okay. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. The arrowhead tip begins to sweep around the dial at the characteristic 3Hz sweep. You'll know this from my previous reviews. Same applies to the NH35A. I dislike the stutter or judder of a 3Hz sweep. I prefer the smoother sweep of 4 Hz running at 28,800 vibrations per hour as per the as per the 9015 and the SW200-1 respectively. This runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour, which is 3 Hz, and of course we have this stutter and judder as per an NH35A. That's just the way it is with the 8215, but I appreciate for the majority of collectors it's not detrimental. The 3 Hz stutter or judder is just a characteristic and they can live with it. So let's say screwing the crown back down. Again, it feels rough. Now, the threads do pick up, but this is the point, they don't mate very well because due to the threads not being cut deep enough, you have to really give it torsion. You have to really turn it. And sometimes you have to rotate it clockwise and anti-clockwise a couple of times in order to get the threads to pick up, to get them to mate. The internal thread of the crown and the external thread of the crown tube. The pickups are not precise. The machining, the tolerances, the quality control is just not there. And it's disappointing because, as I've detailed, steel diver capable of doing it with the SD1953. Pagani designer capable of doing it with the PD1661 at €80. This is 86. There's no excuse for Cadisen not being able to get it right. So you have to rotate the crown a couple of times to get it to pick up, but then it does pick up. But you have to really turn it with torsion because of the additional friction, because of the rubber O-ring tolerances being poor, and also the threads tolerances being poor. So those two issues, friction from the O-rings, friction from the threads, they both are added together. They compound the problem. So one gets this stiff screw down crown. You really have to turn it hard. It just doesn't feel pleasant. It just doesn't feel silky smooth. It's not refined. There's a lack of refinement. That's the point. Just bear with me. I'm going to align the bezel again because I've knocked it out of position. One more click. Right, so screw down crown works okay, but rough and gritty, not pleasant. Right, so let's look at the exhibition case back in detail. So, stainless steel glazed with mineral crystal. Now again, this is a production cost cutting measure. Subjectively, one could argue, well, an exhibition caseback does not need to be sapphire crystal glazed because, unlike the front of a piece, it's not prone to being scuffed and scratched with daily wear and tear, which is fair enough. But it's another production cost-cutting measure. Sapphire crystal glazing is negligible expense versus mineral crystal glazing. And what we're looking at with this piece throughout is production cost-cutting measure after production cost-cutting measure in order to maximise profit margin per piece. So I prefer to see sapphire crystal glazing, although mineral crystal does suffice. Does a good job of displaying the calibre, but as you can see, the 8000 series is basic and undecorated. It's got the standard Miyota rotor. I'd prefer if they signed it, for example, with a Cadisen emblem, or alternatively Cadisen logo, laser etched, because again, the production cost of laser etching a rotor is negligible to Cadisen. This is sterile, unsigned. It's just the basic Miyota standard rotor. Stainless steel portion of the exhibition caseback is concentric CNC lathe tool machine to a good standard. Credit where credit's due. The milled slots have been deburred and chamfered well, no sharp edges. What I like about it is, it isn't a very deep bubble back caseback, and this is beneficial because it does not add significant thickness to the piece. The 8215 is actually a low profile calibre. It's thinner than the NH35A, and they've maximised the benefit of that because the rotor needs less clearance, and therefore the mineral crystal glazing can sit close to the rotor without the rotor fouling it. This piece has been slimmed down to 12.5, which is good. So for example, had Cadisen used the NH35A, this could be 13 or 13.5, but the caseback is not deep and bubble back. It's very low profile. It's actually quite flat. So comfort level and feel good factor enhanced because the head of the piece sits close to the wrist. The other benefit is because it's flat, it means that it's smooth and comfortable, but also reduces thickness down to 12.5, which is very good for a 42. So I like it. I think they've done a good job of it. The engraving is high definition and crisp with the reference number for the piece and specification. However, the negative is it's only 100 metres. Now, of course, if it were 200 or 300 metres, the glazing, mineral crystal, would have to be thicker to withstand the hermetic seal, the pressure without cracking. Also, the stainless steel portion would have to be thicker, for example, 0.5 millimetre thicker. So the caseback would need to be 0.5 millimetre thicker to make this 200 metres, but it would still only be 13, which is the sweet spot. So I think they should have done that. Used a thicker mineral crystal in the glazing, thicker stainless steel portion by 0.5 mm, and it wouldn't be detrimental because even with the box top hat double dome mineral crystal, this would still only be 13, which would be the sweet spot for a 42. It's 12.5, which is good, but 100 meters is of course disappointing. For a dive piece, 200 is the industry standard, but well finished. The other thing is they made the correct decision by not black PVD coating it. Sometimes mid-tier brands and mid-tier micro brands, and also low-tier brands and low-tier micro brands, make this fundamental error. They black PVD coat the crown, the bezel, the case, and also the Caseback. And the reason why the Caseback is a mistake, because this is constantly rubbing against the wrist, rubbing against your skin, and of course that eventually wears off the black PVD coating because it's in constant contact with the wrist. The head of the piece is not in constant contact, the crown, the bezel are not in constant contact, so the wear and tear is less. And with friction, of course, it takes a longer time for the black PVD coating to wear off and reveal the base metal, which is 316L grade stainless steel. Caseback is correct because it's concentric CNC lathe tool machine to beautiful luster, but this is not going to have any black PVD coating to wear off. So in, for example, 1 year, 2 years time of daily wear, 8 hours per day to 12 hours, it's not going to reveal the silver base metal beneath it. It's always going to look the same. They've done the right thing there. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, on a positive note, this fabric nylon strap is long enough to just engage the first keeper, as you can see. But it's a fraction too short to engage the second keeper, so really the maximum length this supports is 7.5 inches. There are enough holes in it to size this down to a minimum 6-inch wrist size up to a maximum 7.5. I can just engage it in the first keeper, but it's 0.5 inch too short for my 8-inch wrist, therefore 7.5 is the maximum, 6 to 7.5, but for the majority of collectors that's acceptable, therefore I'm not going to be critical of it. Now, wrist presence is good at 42, as one would expect. However, I'm going to say to you, if you have a 6 to 7-inch wrist, you're going to find it dominates the wrist too much, because needless to say, 42 does wear with some wrist presence. If you have a larger 7 to 8-inch plus wrist, you're going to enjoy the wrist presence. What I like about it is two things. Lack of heft is one. This is only 78 grams, and 78 is surprisingly lightweight for a 42 on a nylon strap. And one has to appreciate this is not quartz powered or mechanical manual wind powered. This is an automatic, which of course adds some heft. 78 grams is surprisingly lightweight. It's the kind of heft one would expect with a quartz powered piece. I would expect this to be circa 85 to 90 grams. 78 is very good. So it feels lightweight, therefore feels comfortable. Now when I say it feels comfortable, I want to clarify something. Head of the piece feels comfortable. No sharp edges to the undercuts to the flanks, no sharp corners to the tips of the lugs. And of course it's low profile, 12.5. So head of the piece is comfortable. However, this nylon fabric woven strap is dreadful. The flanks are sharp, so when it moves up and down the wrist, it scratches the wrist. The other thing is the fabric material, as I've detailed, feels rough. It feels like canvas. It doesn't feel soft and supple as per seatbelt weave or a nylon NATO strap, which feels more smooth and doesn't have the sharp edges, and it feels more flexible. It's more supple. It's softer. This is very stiff. It's sharp and it feels rough. It feels abrasive. So what we have here is a comfortable head of the piece on a very uncomfortable strap. This is dreadful. And it feels sharp at all times. It just does not feel comfortable. The roughness of the fabric, the sharpness of the flanks, and also the stiffness of it. We have those three negative elements compounding the comfort. So this strap diminishes comfort level. It also diminishes feel-good factor. Visually, it looks good. If this were on a silicone rubber strap or an FKM floor rubber strap, it would look better but also feel more comfortable because, of course, more soft and supple. But in terms of wrist presence, yes, very satisfying for a 7 to 8 inch plus wrist size. So I like the lack of heft, that's one. The second thing I like is 12.5. If this were powered by the NH35A and it were 200 meters water resistant, of course it would need a thicker box top hat double dome crystal. It would also need a thicker Caseback, as I've explained. It would be 0.5 millimeter to 1 millimeter thicker, so it would be 13 to 13.5. That's the benefit of this being 100 meters, because the box top hat crystal can be made thinner, and also the Caseback glazing can be made thinner, as well as the Caseback. This slims it down to only 12.5. So although it's a large piece at 42, It's very flat and low profile. It does sit very snug to the wrist. That's something I like about it. The curvature of the case, the undercuts to the flanks have nice curvature, top of the lugs. So one doesn't get this abhorrent gap beneath the tips of the lugs. It actually pulls very close to the wrist. It feels very snug fitting for a 42. So it doesn't sit on top of the wrist like a thick slab of 316 grade stainless steel. Doesn't feel top heavy. Actually feels very well balanced at 78 grams. They have made the correct decision with a 22 lug width. Had they used 20, it would look undersized. And a 20 to 20 straight and parallel strap is correct. If they used a 20mm to 16 taper, that would have been undersized. So yes, 20 is correct. If this were on a rubber strap at 22 to 22, that would have been perfect, because it would distribute the heft of the head of the piece. The buckle and tang would be correct. They'd have enough meat. So really, I think what we have is a comfortable head of the piece on an uncomfortable strap. Difficult to weigh up because overall you have to add the two. Feel good factor is good in terms of visual impact. It does look aesthetically pleasing, and it is a good homage to the Blancpain 50 Fathoms. Despite having the incorrect blue hue of the AR coating, visually it does look like a great looking piece. Comfort level could be further enhanced. If this were on a rubber strap, yes, comfort level and feel good factor would be fantastic. So it's just a shame. The strap really spoils the experience and it diminishes comfort level and feel good factor. Yes, it does look aesthetically pleasing with the grey stripes, and the fabric weave does look good, but it just feels dreadful. That's the truth of it. So good looking head of the piece, comfortable head of the piece on a good looking but uncomfortable strap. That's the reality. But 78 grams is good. 12.5 thick is good. Now, lug to lug is perfect. It is the perfect 48mm lug to lug that's often referred to. That is the sweet spot, regardless of case size. 39, 40, 41, 42. 48 fits all wrist sizes to perfection, because it's suitable for a 6 to 7 and a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively, and they deserve credit because often with low-tier Chinese brands and low-tier micro brands, they make the mistake of when a case is large at 42, they lengthen the lugs, and they make the lugs too long for the majority of collectors with a 6 to 7.5 inch wrist. This actually is surprisingly compact. 48 is the sweet spot, so even on a 6 to 7 inch wrist, this will fit, albeit it will dominate the wrist because of the large diameter. But if you like large pieces with wrist presence, yes, you will particularly enjoy the 48 lug to lug, because we don't have this overhang on the tips of the lugs one often gets with larger cases. For example, if they have a 49 or a 50 lug to lug, 48 is the perfect sweet spot, and it does work well with a 22 lug width. It's correct. So the proportions of this case throughout are fantastic. 12.5 thick, 48 lug to lug, 42 diameter gives it wrist presence, but we don't have a thick slab of 316 grade stainless steel. It's only 78 grams. So I do like the head of the piece in terms of dimensions. Proportions are fantastic. The domed profile of the mineral bezel insert is excellent. It does look good in daylight. And the domed profile to the box top hat crystal also looks very aesthetically pleasing. So visually it looks good. I like the black sunray dial. And in terms of dial execution, quality of the mirror polishing to the applied Arabic numerals at 12, 9, 6 and 3 are good. The triangle indices are good, they're mirror polished well, and the quality of the polishing to the handset is good. Printing on the dial is also high definition and crisp, and I like the cursive font used on the dial because it does visually look like a Blancpain 50 Fathoms, and the silver applied emblem adds interest and gives it a high quality feel. So dial execution is good, and the sunray black dial is clearly legible. So they've done a good job of the dial, done a good job of the printing on it, and it's just a shame the bezel is not sapphire crystal and fully lumed. Right, so now let's do a lume test. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute maximum. Now, this uses C3 supernova, but I'm going to show you a curiosity about it. When I shine the 100 UV LEDs, when I charge it, this uses C3, which is green, on the Arabic numerals, the applied indices and the handset. But when I apply the UV lights, you can see the handset appears to glow blue, rather like BGW9. But strangely, when I charge it and then remove the torch, it actually all glows the same green, which is strange. And it's rather like they've mixed BGW9 with C3 on the hands to give the exciter additional potency. But on the indices and the Arabic numerals on the dial, they've just used green C3 throughout, which I'll show you. So you can now see, it's strange, because when I apply the UV lights, the hands glow blue, and one would expect them to glow blue like BGW9. Now, you can see the negative. again, what we have is a production cost-cutting measure, and this is compounded by the blue tint of the AR coating. Had they used clear AR coating, of course that would be beneficial, because that would allow the potency of the exciter to shine through the mineral crystal better, because it is a thick box top hat crystal. But you can see what I'm talking about there. When I shine the UV light on it, the hands now appear blue, like BGW9. But if you look at the Arabic numerals, they look green, as do the indices. But yet, when I remove the UV light, they all glow green. So I think what they've done is they've mixed BGW9 with C3 on the hands, but then on the Arabic numerals and the indices on the dial, they've just used C3. But nonetheless, they all glow the same green tone in the dark. That's the point. Problem is, what we have here is, I think, 3 to 4 layers on the handsets, but only 2 to 3 layers on the Arabic numerals and the indices on the dial. Potency of the exciter is lacking throughout, and exponentially with time, it fades rapidly to nothing. So this is dreadful. And I can't be magnanimous about it, because yes, this piece is a low-tier piece costing only €86. But the reason why I'm not magnanimous is, again, I keep referencing it, but it's a good benchmark. The Steel Dive SD1953 is €80. That has a fully loomed ceramic bezel insert with BGW9, 5 to 6 layers on the bezel insert, 5 to 6 layers on the dial, 5 to 6 layers on the hands. It is stellar. For €80, the Steel Dive SD1953 cannot be beaten. It's fantastic. Stellar performance. BGW9, 5 to 6 layers on 3 places. This piece should be able to compete with that. It's €86, but you can see we have, I think, 2 to 3 layers on the dial and a maximum of 3 to 4 on the hands, but definitely not 5 to 6, because you can see initially the potency of the exciter looks okay, it's brighter on the hands, but now with time exponentially it's going to fade rapidly to nothing. And I think 2 to 3 is the maximum for the dial, 3 to 4 is the maximum for the hands. We haven't even got 5 to 6 on the hands. And I think what they've done is they've mixed BGW9 with C3 on the hands to try to increase the potency, but it's dreadful. And this is nowhere near the performance of an SD1953. Of course, it's equal to a PD1661, which has dreadful performance. Pagani Design are using Luminova, they're not even using Super Luminova. But that's the negative. So you can see, it's strange. When you charge it, the hands look blue like BGW9, and on the indices and the Arabic numerals it looks green. But then when you take away the charge, we have C3 throughout. So I think we've got a mixture on the hands, but nonetheless, dreadful. And the other problem is they've missed an opportunity, because can you imagine how they used a sapphire bezel insert fully loomed with BGW9 on the diamonds as an alternative to a Lume pip, the 15-minute ticks in the first quarter, and the 15, 30 and 45. Can you imagine if it was sapphire crystal fully loomed with BGW9 or C3? This would be fantastic looking, as per the Blancpain 50 Fathoms. But they haven't applied any Lume. They didn't even apply Lume on the diamond, which is an alternative to the Lume pip. So they could have used BGW9 or C3 on the diamond on the bezel inserts, because this is meant to be a dive piece. But there's no marking in the dark on the bezel. There's no Lume pip. We don't have the diamond loomed. So you can't actually see where the bezel is in the dark. And this is meant to be a dive watch. So they really need to update this with a V2. I'd like to see 5 to 6 layers on the dial, 5 to 6 on the hands, and ideally 5 to 6 layers on the diamonds, the minute ticks for the first 15 minutes, the Arabic numerals and the hour markers on the bezel. And of course upgrade it to sapphire crystal versus mineral. So disappointing Lume, and disappointing there is no Lume whatsoever on the mineral crystal domed bezel insert. Right, so let's discuss the movement used, because it's my favourite aspect of the piece. Now, you'll all be familiar with the Miyota Caliber 8215 automatic, which is made in Japan. It has 21 joules. It runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. Has hand winding and hacking, which use for complications, and as I've demonstrated, they work well. Quick set date complication works well. 42 hours power reserve is perfectly acceptable. The stated accuracy of the 8215 is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so a rather wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that Cadisen are doing a good job of regulating it. This one is running consistently at plus 10 seconds per day, so it's running fast, but however, one has to be magnanimous. Plus 10 is well within the stated accuracy of minus 20 to plus 40, which is a wide accuracy range. They can be regulated better than plus or minus 10 in 5 positions. One can actually attain chronometer limits of minus 4 to plus 6 when regulated in 5, but I consider anything between plus or minus 10 to be good because the accuracy range is very wide with the 8215, minus 20 to plus 40. So it's okay, plus 10 is acceptable. The negative of this movement is the rotor, because it is noisy. Now, to clarify, it's unidirectional winding, so the rotor has to rotate anti-clockwise in order to wind it automatically. When it rotates clockwise, it has negligible winding effect, but that's okay. The problem is it's noisy. So when it spins round, and it does spin round freely, the problem with it is it makes a noise. And you can hear the noise. It's loud, it's audible. So to put it into perspective, the noisy rotor, it sounds louder than an NH35A, a 9015 and an SW200-1 respectively, which you are all familiar with. It's noticeably audible. So when you have it on wrist and it's moving both clockwise and anti-clockwise, it makes a loud audible sound. And if you like a quiet automatic, such as the NH35A, 9015 or SW200-1, that's something that might irritate you. I like a quieter movement. I dislike the 8000 series, such as the 8215 and the 8315, because they have noisy rotors. The 9015 and 9039 are premium 9000 grade calibers, and they are quieter. They have a similar sound to the SW200-1, for example, or the NH35A. So that's something to note. Noisy rotor, it's just a characteristic of the 8215. But in terms of reliability, what I like about it above all else, it's well proven, because Miyota have been making the 8215 since 1977, so it's a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement. The other thing I like about it is, originally, the 8215 did not hack. That was the main negative of it. When you pulled out the crown to set the time, the second hand continued to sweep at 3 Hz. But then Miyota updated it to have hacking, and this one does hack. It's the updated version. And then they built the successor of it based on the architecture, the 8315. So as you can see, now when I pull out the crown to the time setting position, it hacks. Early versions did not hack. That's the benefit. So this is the updated 8215. I would prefer to see the 8315, its successor, used, because of course that has the same architecture but has the benefit of 60 hours. And of course it's the same dimensions, so it will fit in the same case without modification. So they could easily update this from using the 8215 to the 8315, and that would increase it from 42 to 60 hours respectively. There's something else I want to talk about. Originally, when Cadisen released this piece, it was supplied with an NH35A, which of course is a higher grade of movement. Now the price point was the same €86. But what they've now done is they've downgraded it, because this is now powered by the 8215, and I regard the NH35A to be a level above the 8215. But they haven't dropped the price, that's the point I'm making. The retail price is the same €86, but we've now got a lower grade of calibre. And I really regard downgrading from the NH35A to the 8215 as a downgrade. The NH35A is quieter. The quick set complication feels better, clicks over with a heavier click. And in terms of build quality, quality control, materials and finishing, I regard the NH35A overall as a level above the 8000 series, such as the 8215. So really it's disappointing to see a low-tier Chinese brand downgrade from the NH35A down to the 8215. What they should be doing is the reverse of that, upgrading from the 8215 to the NH35A, which is moving up a level. So that's the negative of this piece. Now, had they reduced the price from 86 down to 80 or 76, of course, one could be magnanimous and say, well, they've downgraded the calibre, they've reduced the price by €10 to compensate for that, but they haven't done that. What they've done is they've downgraded the calibre. The reason why is to reduce production costs per piece and maximise profit margin per piece, because they now gain €10 per piece. So same €86 retail, but lower quality movement, but they save €10 per piece production cost. And one has to bear in mind, they're producing these in massive batches of 500 plus piece batches of each colour. And of course, €10 times 500 batches, they're saving massive amounts of capital on parts by using the 8215 versus the NH35A. That's the reason why they've done it. Disappointing, Prefer this to have an NH35A as per the originals, but that's what they're producing in 2025. So last I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meets two criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price points. So, low tier piece, low tier is €0 to €500 price point, €86. I'm going to declare it okay quality, and I'm going to declare it poor value. The reason why I say it's okay quality and not good or excellent quality is the bezel is made from mineral crystal, not sapphire. Also, there is no lume whatsoever. That's a downgrade. The other problem is the dial. The C3 Super Lume Nova on the dial and hands is dreadful performance. The movement has been downgraded from NH35A down to 8215 as I've detailed. These are all downgrades and production cost cutting measures too far. So I can only say okay quality. I can't say good or excellent quality. Value is poor. The reason why I say value is poor, this faces stiff competition. And I keep referencing the Steel Dive 1850, the SD 1953, because that really is the excellent benchmark, because that uses the NH35A. It's 200 metres, not 100 metres. But the other thing is BGW9 on the fully loomed ceramic bezel insert, BGW9 on the hands, BGW9 on the dial, 5 to 6 layers. Silky smooth screw down crown execution, bezel execution is excellent. So the SD 1953 is an €80 piece, but in every regard, build quality, quality control, materials finishing, specification is loaded. Plus sapphire crystal, AR coating. Everything about this Cadisen that is incorrect, Steel Diver getting correct with the SD 1953, and it's €80. This is 86. Plus the SD 1953 comes on a bracelet. It's not coming on this abhorrent, stiff, rough, scratchy, sharp nylon fabric strap with a sterile buckle and tang. So you can see my argument. The SD 1953 at €80 is a better piece. And that's what this is going up against, direct head-to-head competition with. Because 5 to 6 layers on the SD 1953 of BGW9 versus 2 to 3 on the dial on this piece. And then, of course, we've got the gritty, stiff, screw-down crown versus silky smooth. And that's the point. So really, Cadisen need to update this with a V2. They need to correct all the errors I've detailed and ideally upgrade or reverts back to using the NH35A, which they were doing, but they've now downgraded to the 8215. So that's what they need to do. And then I would upgrade it to good quality or good value, alternatively good quality and okay value. But as it stands, I can only say okay quality and poor value. There are better alternatives at €86, and I think Cadisen really have too many production cost cutting measures for this piece to be considered. So I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Cadisen C8239. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.